Yeah. Hey,
Look at that.
hello everyone. Wendy's in here.
Yeah.
Cheryl is
We got
here.
Cheryl back.
And speaking of
Buenas
this,
tardes, Charlotte Garcia.
I was just
¿Cómo
on
estás?
our first actual vacation in like 2 years, and it was a Spanish-speaking version of White Lotus. So that was kind of my vacation. I was just sitting there thinking White Lotus the whole time. So
Was it a resort?
yeah,
So
uh,
I kind of figured that because when you came back, there were like I think Ted's been relaxing a little bit too much. There's a couple of comments maybe in the Discord, or I can't remember exactly what it is, but
oh really?
yeah, I was like,
Oh, I was
Ted's
relaxed.
not on his A game
I'll
like
be
he
right
always
back.
is.
Yeah.
It's probably because he's coming back. Uh-oh,
Yes. Yeah.
we lost somebody.
Uh, yeah. It was cool though. We were flying in over LA, actually San Diego to LA, and there was some really bad turbulence. And my partner, who always hated turbulence, is a lot more chill with it now. She said, "Yeah, now that I understand that it happens around clouds, I feel better about it." I was like, "Cool." Yeah. I also got to see Catalina Island from the plane, which is fun. Like having been there.
It looked like an awesome trip, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about it more on the pod. But I saw a video today. Uh-oh, here we go.
Those are the VHSs, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
of. Oh yeah, look at that. We're
Takeoff
gonna
and landings.
auction those things
Just
off.
climb into your Lando-matic, and it'll
Yes.
happen for you.
I got my hands on a bunch of classic 80s VHSs that were
Yeah.
from the in-laws and some good stuff. Also,
Not
I just want to
saying that
mention
there's
real
going to be
quick.
any copyright, but there are about to be an awesome bunch of Siskin videos coming out soon.
Oh yeah. And then this book, I love the design of a lot of these books, from this era. But this one, Flying Safely, I've got reserved for my I've already reserved this one for my friend Autumn, but I found a page in it that said I'm just going to read you a bit of this real quick before we go on. It said
It's information whiskey. We can do whatever we want.
that's
Yeah.
right. Well, speaking, this is setting the tone actually, because
Yeah.
so in this book, Flying Safely, it looks like a pretty, like, okay, I should, take this book very seriously. And then you go into it and it's like, it says, Let's go buzzing. Buzzing and low-level aerobatics seem to be the most popular outlets for pilots who are under the influence. Almost a third of the accidents are related to such playfulness. Some of the lower alcohol levels appear rather frequently in this type of accident too, but a few pilots end their careers while buzzing or doing aerobatics with a pretty good load of alcohol on board. And then it goes into this other thing. It says the header says larcenous liquor, and it's talking about people being drunk and stealing aircraft.
Wow.
So they're the people that are probably not going to read the book Flying Safely. So
Do you have a published date?
this one's I want to say it's from the late 80s, which is let's see. It is 19 Oh no, it's 1977.
That sounds about right.
Sounds kind of 77.
Yeah,
Dev
Kev
Can, this
has
is
a good
entirely
point. Now I'm
correct.
curious what the
Yeah.
difference is between the VHSs and what
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That is a great point. Well, I also got a whole IFR series of about 8 VHSs. I got the Sporties, with the they would have like the bifold plastic case, right, that opens out.
Oh yeah.
And
Clamshell.
it's it's like 2 hours of video that's just about landing from Sporties from the
awesome.
probably late 70s, early 80s videotapes.
Did you guys ever buy something that had cassette tapes in one of those, where it's like you pop it open and it's like there's like
So
8
Oh
cassette
yeah.
tapes?
Yeah,
I
it's
know
always like
that from religious stuff.
it's always
So
the
here's the
art
deal.
of negotiation.
Yes.
So I know we probably need to kick this thing off, but starting out in my career, Ted, you're probably not familiar with this restaurant chain. I know Brian probably is. Cracker Barrel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
How dare
so
you?
they had audio books that were on cassette tapes that you would pay for it, then you could return it to any other Cracker Barrel for like, and they would give you everything but $3. So it
Oh.
was like kind of like a rental program. I can't tell you how many audiobooks I listened to on those those big binders that you open up, and there's 12 cassettes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then your cassette tape's starting to go because it's like.
And then I was long, it lasted long enough where they were on CDs for a while, and then so yeah.
That's good. I like that.
All right, we
do
got
it.
a big chat room. They're probably tired of hearing us blah blah
Yeah.
blah, and so let's
go.
kick this thing off.
Yep.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. What is it like to become a pilot in midlife? The challenges are unique, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
And hello, and welcome to episode 109 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. My name is Ben, and I am a commercially certificated pilot with an instrument rating. I fly a Cessna 182, sometimes called the Beast. We're glad you're with us. So whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for a rating, or just thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of the podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. Tonight, with me, as always, because I wouldn't do it without him. Starting off in Nashville, Tennessee, home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie, flying a Cherokee 180 named Lucy, we have Mr. Brian Siskin. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and I'm so glad everybody's here. I hope everybody's had a great holiday. And Ben, I would, Ted, what do you think? Can we just set it up where we have at least one episode of this podcast where it's just Ben?
Yeah. Yeah. And how would we not tell him? Yeah. Or we show up, we do the intro.
With that, I feel like
Yeah.
I can't tell if I'm being insulted or not. I kind
I
of
think
feel
we
like
should be here. We start the intro and we just walk away.
Yeah, we're live. See you later. And then Ben, you could say things like, and then I think what Brian would say here is this. And then if Ted were here, he would say.
Well, speaking of Ted, also joining us tonight out of Portland, Oregon, flying a flight design CTLS we like to call the Egg. He's our sport pilot extraordinaire. Good evening, Mr. Ted, the timestamp fly sport.
Hey there. Yeah,
Hey
nice to
there.
be here. Yeah.
Glad to have you tonight. Episode 109. It's all about the whiskey and maybe a little bit about Texas.
Mm.
What do y'all think?
Sounds good.
I think maybe before we get into events and announcements, Brian, let's go ahead and take the housekeeping and knock that out, and then we can kind of launch into everything else. Is that all right with you?
Yes. What did we call it last week? The belly wash?
The belly wash.
All
Really
right.
like
Yes. So I'm glad everybody's here in the chat. We're grateful for you guys all listening, making this the best pilot community that we know of. Positive space where we share everything from training experiences, shared personal minimums, tackle ownership challenges, review flight plans, and best of all, make new aviation friends. By the way, one of the things I saw in the Discord, we'll get to the Discord in a minute, but when we're talking about reviewing flight plans together and all that, one of the coolest things about the Discord is we have a section that just dedicated to no-go decisions, which we always applaud. And I got a great little tidbit in there today. I forget who it was. I'll have to go back and look, but it was I have to go back and look, but it was the tip was when you're making the weather decision for a flight that's perhaps on the edge, go ahead and take screenshots of everything that you saw. And then, especially when you make a no-go decision, you can go and see what the weather ended up being. And then kind of based on your projections and all that, you can do a debrief kind of comparison of what sort of happened or didn't happen, even though you didn't go.
Yeah, it's
Um,
kind of like comparing the prediction to what actually happened, or taking your bet on the sports ball game and the final score. That was that was Trinidad Pilot.
Yes, Trinidad
Was,
Pilot. Yeah,
yes.
thank you for that. So, yes, you can connect with us. Join our Patreon community from $1 a month. That is some arguable amount of money per episode. 24.3 cents or whatever we keep kind of dialing it down to. Hopefully this is worth 24 cents. Oh gosh, if it's not.
We're putting in 20 cents worth of effort.
I probably should. Yeah. All right. Access exclusive content, get access to the Discord community. 10% supports Freedom Aviation Network's anti-human trafficking efforts. Watch us live on YouTube, Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. Share your stories with us, your feedback, anything you want. midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We read all the messages, and you might even hear it on the show. For everything Midlife Pilot Podcast, community feedback, merch, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com. And I should also mention, we always forget to ask for reviews, but they really do help us. If you can get out to Apple Places and all the things and leave 5-star reviews, that actually is massive, and we're terrible at reminding people to do that.
Yeah.
So
I want to do a quick catch up on what we've been flying before we hit the events and announcements. And we have somebody in our chat, Trinidad Pilot, who left that comment in the go, no go decision. I had posted in there, the Beast got a detailed and then a ceramic coat put on it. And really great guy who did it. And his name happens to be John M. Okay. Which is also shares the same name as Trinidad Pilot, John M. And so when he calls us to say, hey, the plane's, we're going to, put it in the hangar on Thursday to be done by Friday, I had gotten the email notifying that he had joined us on Patreon. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of a common name, but that was just too close together. It was just too coincidental. So it's by the way, did you support us on Patreon? He goes, what's Patreon? So I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, never mind. Anyway, thank you, John M. I do now know that it's not the same. And as far as flying, I did take up, Evan and I went up and went to Greene County, Georgia, Charlie Papa. It's near a Ritz-Carlton resort that's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's beautiful. And so there's a lot of jet traffic that comes in there. And I had never been there. It was an awesome FBO. Met some people there that may be doing some multi-work, and who knows, I might be using them. But anyway, that's the limit of my flying. However, there's going to be a fair amount of flying in the coming days, actually. So, but how about you guys? I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Fly Sport for posting a great video. Did you see it, Brian?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I love the cross country with the significant other. It's a huge deal.
Yeah, I always just enjoy seeing any of us, whether flying, because you have to at that, for whatever reason, if you've got to be just underneath the clouds, with your significant other, that should be like a check ride unto itself. It is such a skill to try and manage that while setting expectations for. So, and you did a great job of explaining it, and then you were asking for what you needed from ATC, but you weren't. It would be bad if you said, listen, controller, I've got I know her face and I've got about 30 to 45 more seconds before the patience runs out. and this is going to go sideways for this whole trip. So I need higher.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really kind of funny because that trip uh, was basically all climbing and descending. I didn't really notice it at the time, and it doesn't come through on the video quite as much, but you'll hear I'm down to 3,000 feet, and then I'm asking for 7,500, and then near the end, I'm at like 6,000 feet. I'm like 5 miles from the runway because it's all kind of ocean crossing near the end. So it's
Mhm.
like the whole trip was climbing and descending, and yeah, it was a lot of fun though.
You handled the go around very well too, if I might add,
Oh, thanks.
with your passenger, because that could be nerve
Yeah,
wracking for somebody that's flown before, much
yeah,
less somebody new to relatively newer to GA. So
for sure.
well done.
The other thing I noticed that is a tricky. I mean, we've talked about flying with spouses, and we can refer back to that episode in the show notes. But there's a point where because I know that you're trying to manage. You just want everybody to be comfortable and happy, right? That's what we
Yeah,
always want: is people to be comfortable and happy. And sometimes things allow for that. Sometimes they're a little bit more challenging, but you were properly. I'm not going to say terse, but direct when it was time to land,
yes,
and you were getting into the pattern, and it was busy,
yes,
and you said specifically, I need you to put your book in your phone down or whatever, and I need your
yeah.
help looking outside. And I thought that was fantastic because and honestly, that's the kind of thing that can go
Oh yeah, yeah,
that can go a lot of ways.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was definitely one of those. It's like, okay, 2 hours of this flight, 90% of it you're on your own. This is when I need you. And she was pretty good at spotting traffic.
Mhm.
There was a
That's
couple of
awesome.
times, it's not all in the video, but there were a couple of times it's like she finds him about the same time I did, or right before I did.
Mhm.
And that final traffic that was coming in off the opposing base to final, where it's like you just can't find them. It's
Mhm.
there. It's so hard to see them. And I was actually just editing the video, and this is from months ago. But I went back and I said, oh, so when I said following the pattern, what I meant by that was the almost regulation of how you fly. What the pattern is, and I realized the difference on how I said it then versus what I actually meant. Where it didn't matter at the time, but
Mhm.
yeah, it was a little bit of an adventure. So it was a good flight though.
Good video.
Yep.
Thanks.
How
Yeah.
about you, Mr. Siskin? Any chances to get up in the air since last time we recorded?
I don't think so. Actually, the weather's been horrible, and
Yeah.
I've been pretty busy. So, and I don't think I've even put out any videos this week. Yeah, I've been doing life
Life.
things. I guess it's been it's a little bit of traveling, holiday things, all that. I
Yeah.
was actually really considering meeting the family down in Chattanooga, and it was one of those things where I chose not to based on the weather on the day that I was to be coming back. So
Right.
the day of departure would have been totally fine. Christmas Day, totally fine. Not worried about that. But I was looking to come back the day after Christmas. And given it's the mountains there, low clouds, all this, I was like, I just would prefer to not be thinking about it. And I certainly didn't want it to be an imposition on anyone to take me to the airport to then just have me be there to figure out that I can't go and then
Right.
or whatever. And then can you please come back and get me? And I was like, great, thanks for wasting all of our time. And but at the same time, I wasn't I wasn't sure that it was going to be bad. I just decided it was a no-go where it was more based on if it ends up not being great, if I'm looking at the weather down the road, the next day and the next day and the next day, the atmosphere is getting so unstable and there's so much more bad things coming that I didn't want to be in a position where I was going to be perhaps stuck there for longer than I was even staying there
Right.
to begin with. So,
Right.
and what happened was I totally could have done it. But you know what I did instead? And I really enjoyed it is I drove my 1985 Toyota MR2, took back roads, windy mountain roads, and had the best time. I hadn't taken a drive like that in a while, where I just was on windy 2-lane back roads for a good while, and no traffic, and it was sublime in the same way that I think flying gives me that feeling sometimes. But it was this
At
time
a fraction of the cost.
a terrestrial endeavor. Yes. So, and ethanol-free gas is so much cheaper there. So that was nice. So anyway, it ended up being great. The car did wonderfully. I got caught up on podcasts and things like that, and it was fantastic. So I didn't do any flying, but I did get around a little bit.
Nice. Well, cool. Ted, can you give us an update on the Patreon members and what's been going on in Discord?
Yeah. So since our last recording, we have 4 people on Patreon. At the Hershey Bar level, we have Matt E and Nikhil N, who both upgraded to Hershey Bar level. And at the Beast Soul Kit level, we have Nick R and John R. It's always nice to see new people coming in and joining the crowd and being active in Discord.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And saw a couple of things go past in Discord. The one was Erica. Her mom asked her, how are your friends doing in the Midlife Crisis podcast? It's like Midlife Crisis podcast. Okay,
and that's Erica Gilbert of Aerosafe Aviation.
Thank you.
For those of you listening in the audience who may not know, she's got a great YouTube channel, goes into details with weather, but she's been a friend of the show. We've had her on, I think, at least once or twice, and I completely
She'll be back.
Identified with her comment as the Midlife Crisis podcast.
Yeah, there's some great replies in there. We had somebody that detailed their experience with carb icing, actually having carb icing and how it felt, and their realization of what was going on, and that's always good. You can read about it in books, but to have somebody come in and say, "Here was my experience," that catches my eye at least. So I really appreciate that. And there's lots more talk about engine monitors, so it's a kind of a recurring thing, which is great. But there was some really good discussion around that, I thought. So, yeah, those were fun.
By the way, one of the neat things about that is that the EIS conversations have been winter related, and a lot of trading knowledge on oil plate winterization, all of those matters, and then how that relates to cylinder head temperatures and all of those particulars. So it's been really, really interesting, and I've actually learned some things.
Yeah, it's been good to have that in there.
Most definitely.
Well, Ben,
so tonight is an information whiskey where we just kind of banter about, but we do have an announcement on an event in our events and announcements section of the podcast.
Hey, wait, Ben, before you do it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we've never done this before, but I'm wondering if we just use some canned music here to make it more exciting.
Let's go for
it. Ben, you shook your head like this and said,
I know what I did.
Well, okay, so I have no idea if this is going to be absolutely awful, but I can't resist it, and we're just going to see what happens. It's sort of a road test for some things, but anyway, I'm going to hit play here. Ben, you have an announcement?
Perfect. Thank you. The big announcement is that we have arranged for the next Midlife Pilot podcast fly-in. It will be in, I don't know the music well enough to really hit where at its crescendo, so I'm working the best I can, so please forgive me. The next Midlife Pilot podcast will be at Fredericksburg, Texas, Tango 82. It will be held during the weekend of May 2nd through the 4th. I'm going to say that one more time so you can
boom
your phone or your piece of pen and paper. May 2nd through the 4th, the Midlife Pilot Podcast fly-in will be at Fredericksburg, Texas, Tango 82. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's kind of between San Antonio and Austin. We have secured the Hangar Hotel. We have secured discounts to the room is the best way to say that.
A block.
A block. And to access this, the only way you can do it, you cannot go online to get the discount. You can go online and book your room, but you won't get the block rates that we've arranged for. The only way to do it is through calling to the hotel and telling that you're part of the Midlife Pilot Group. And with that, we'll have everything is on our website or will be posted. Is it there yet?
It is there. Everybody can go there now. You just go to midlifepilotpodcast.com and you will see the way to the page that has all of this information to great, excruciating levels of detail. And most importantly, the RSVP form at the bottom of the long scroll page. It's like a terms of service. You got to see everything that's going on before you can raise your hand and say that you're coming. But sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Ben.
No, that's fine. I'm glad you got to that. The Hangar Hotel, it is on the airport, and Fredericksburg is a great, cool town that's just a couple of miles away with breweries and restaurants and everything. So here's the deal. You get a discount if you use our code. We have a block of rooms. When they're out, they're out. It's on a first come, first served basis. And we've gone, the staff has been really awesome to work with.
Yeah.
For example, book your rooms now. If you have to cancel, you have 48 hours to cancel for a full refund. And then they went as far to say that if you're a VFR pilot and you can't go the day of, then they will give you a refund if you can't get in due to weather. I mean, they're willing to work with us in a lot of different ways. So they are, to say that they're pilot friendly would be a gross understatement. We're really excited about it. Brian, you want to talk a little bit about some of the itinerary that we had in mind?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, the working name for this fly-in, as we have it now, is the Big Texas Send, because we're all sending it to get there.
That's for sure.
So it's the Big Texas Send fly-in. Yes, Gillespie Field, Tango 82, Hangar Hotel. It's no wonder that a hotel based on an airfield that is 40s aviation themed is sympathetic to the idea that pilots may not be able to make it due to weather, and don't penalize them or put undue pressure on them if they're trying to get there. So fantastic. Good on them. Also want to clarify that we do have a limited block and it is first come, first serve. But that being said, there are going to be rooms available there to their capacity that extend beyond our block. So if for whatever reason that happens and you're just one person too late, it's going to be fine. All that being said, I believe that they will work with us. And honestly, I believe anybody that says that they're with the Midlife Pilot block group, I believe they will give that block rate to anyone that asks for that, because it's not like it's half price or something.
Yeah.
So don't hold me to it, but I believe as flexible and cool as they are, that's likely the case. And so it's Friday, May 2nd through Sunday, May 4th, 2025. And yes, RSVP is required. We have to know what's going on so that we can know what's going on. So please, if you're coming, I mean, if it's last minute, it's last minute, but try to let us know. They've got plenty of runway, plenty of lights. I even was talking with our friend Erica Gilbert of Gilbert Aviation / Aerosafe, as you were mentioning earlier, Ben. And she was delighted to find out that the TBM that she flies will get right in there. No problem at all. So I haven't told her yet that she's going to be the one that has to come around and pick us all up. If she's going to have to be the bin.
Hey, I only have one thing to say about that. Shotgun.
That's good. That's good. And it's on the record.
It's on the record.
Yes.
On the record.
Yeah, you called it.
That's very smart. But yes, so there are going to be some, I want to talk just a little bit about the itinerary. I'll try to not spend too much time here, but people should know, first of all, the Hangar Hotel is Go look it up, hangarhotel.com. Unbelievable. It's all basically designed in the theme of World War II hangar. Curved metal roof, all this memorabilia, all this history. And like Ben, you were saying, it's really close to town and a lot of historic, interesting, cool little spots. In terms of for whatever reason, if you don't want to stay at the Hangar Hotel, there are plenty of Airbnbs and other hotels around. So don't feel like that's the only place. And but here's one of the coolest things is that right next to the Hangar Hotel on the field is the Airport Diner, which is also a throwback classic 1940s diner. They've got breakfast all day. They're open all the time. They've got legendary shakes and malts, and they are that we have. This is what we were talking about, right? Like we want to have a centralized place where it's actually worth it for us to go to this distance to have everything happen in one spot, because it gets real complicated when we're juggling a lot of different elements. Now, in terms of the funtivities, we basically will be getting to the airport on Friday. Honestly, some of us will probably be there on Thursday. We're just going to hang out. And then Saturday we've got breakfast and meetups and all of that. And we're going to do some, fly in each other's planes. And there's a whole different array of outings. A few that we just went ahead and picked out, but this will get sorted out later. But there's a hill country loop, there's an LBJ ranch tour, a canyon lake circuit, and just short hops to nearby airports for famous barbecue or restaurants on the field and other places and all of that. They have an officers club here at the Hangar Hotel and all that. It's going to be awesome. They have music. It's just an incredible all included place if you don't know about it. And I'm really excited because we're going to get some people connected to some people that haven't been able to make it back this far east. So all that being said, this is dynamic and we're going to be planning things as we go. I will say that we are in some talks with some pretty smart people that might be able to pull off. There's a chance that we might be able to pull off a Wings qualified, seminar, something of educational value, and not just talking with us or whatever. So anyway, there's a lot of different things we're working on. We've got a little bit of time to do it, but that's the general overview.
So the phone number is on the website. Again, that's midlifepilotpodcast.com. And then you'll see a link at the top for the Big Texas Send. And you have to scroll down and you'll see the special group rate available. The phone number, the reservation desk directly is 830-997-9990. And you have to say that you're part of the group of the Midlife Pilot group. So again, they're such great folks to work with. I mean, even just from the initial call to them to tell them what we want to do, it felt like the vibes were just like right where we need to be.
Right.
It just kind of felt like the right place. I think, Ted, you have a couple other things you want to hit on.
Yeah. Well, you didn't warn us, advise you when you're ready to copy a number when you gave that. But yeah, numbers on our website. You can also grab it off their website. I'll put it in the show notes. But since you can't book online, you need to call that. That's why that phone number is so important. I'm going to include a couple of videos showing the Hangar Hotel. Just plain silly. Brian put up a video like 5 years ago going there. And there's something like that. As well, TAC Aero is there on the field there. I think they used to be based in up in my area. And they do a lot of tail wheel training and backcountry flying training like that, because they're in the Cub Crafter Cubs. So I'll put a video or two about them. But yeah, it's a kind of a busy airport for, hobby pilots, I guess is the way to put it. So,
and one quick comment I wanted to address here that I see in the chat is who's the person with like the binary code username?
Mr. Bitshifter.
Bitshifter. Yes, I knew there was some digital rationale. He says, "You've convinced me I need to buy a plane so I can go." And so my response to that would be the first fly-in that I went to, I rented a plane, but what I did was I got into a club. And so if you're not in a place, honestly, for me I wanted so badly to start doing things like this that was a lot of what motivated me to get beyond renting at my local airport and finding a way to do it. So I don't know what BitShifter, what your situation is, but it sounds like you do not own a plane. Otherwise, you would not be looking to buy one. So that's always the sweet spot is a club. So if you have one available to you, please check that out because we would love to see you there. And it is a nice. It's actually, I think, a good idea to before you would buy a plane to get into a club, fly some different planes, and take them on some trips so you can kind of get a sense of what it's really like to fly that particular plane to do these particular things. But yeah. So Ted, how long is it going to take you to fly there?
It's
He's
gonna
gonna leave tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I've only routed it, like 5 different times. So I was on vacation, just right on iPhone and ForeFlight. But I've got a couple different routes, and they're all it's gonna be 16-ish hours, which is pretty much the case no matter where I go. Ironically, it's about the same distance or time that it takes to get to Nashville. So
I'm so sorry you're gonna have to
yeah,
stop for fuel once.
yeah, that's actually part of the routing is because of that. So. Hey, PSA or request if anybody is in Arizona and can help me with getting MoGas at an airport. If you know somebody who has gas cans at an airport, please let me know.
Oh,
We've
I
got listeners out there.
That's why I'm saying it.
can't you
There
just
are
like strap
none.
some to the side of your plane?
Yeah, yeah. There are none on the official fly unleaded list. I do know one place that I may go to get gas because I know somebody private who has their own fueling. They obviously can't sell it uh, because it's just private use, but that's kind of what I'm looking for is one place to fuel around Arizona. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's should be a fun trip.
Something else I wanted to touch on, and Brian had mentioned this a minute ago, but God forbid the hotel sells out. And I'm not trying to undersell the hotel. It looks fantastic. But I did a quick Airbnb search for Fredericksburg, Texas, and the returns I got was massive.
Yeah.
If you can't find a place to stay at a reasonable price, then you're really not looking that hard. And that's another factor that came into us choosing this place. Not only is it a central location, but it's just got us written all over it. And then one more quick thing: when I was calling to find the best date possible, she told us this date. We had quite a few rooms available, but there is a local VFW event that's going to be happening there at the same time. So we might get to see some veteran pilots, hang out with them, and hear some great war stories while we're there.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
and honestly, if people want to batch together and get a Airbnb or a couple of Airbnbs and share those in a way that is, you could make it so cheap.
Yeah.
People could out compound us, by
Yes.
starting their own compound in Fredericksburg. But we do hope everybody can make it. Now's the time to start planning for stuff like that and get it, cleared with work and family and all those things. Speaking of, that's one other critical detail that people should know. The Hangar Hotel is 18 plus, no kids. Luckily, we're all well old enough, but that should be known.
Some of
Yeah.
us have all 3 kids that are 18 plus,
Yeah.
which makes us
Exactly.
real, like borderline old, not beyond midlife.
I'm looking right now. If I flew right now to Tango 82 from Nashville, it would be, or I'm sorry, from Nashville to Tango 82, it would be 7 hours and 28 minutes because it would be a 28 knot headwind. And then coming back, it would be 5 hours.
It's a huge difference. Yeah. Yeah.
I looked. I think it's probably similar numbers for me. I think it was 6 and 4.5, maybe, or something close to that.
Yeah, it's about 700 miles for me.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I looked it up. And the longest way, which would be going basically past Grizzly's house on the way, which is um, basically going all the way south and then all the way east instead of cutting through in any way. But that is 17 hours, and that's definitely not the preferred way to go. But that's like the worst case option for me. So it'll be 2 or 2.5 days, which would be great.
Well, you know that I am not going to go that far west and not go to Marfa.
Oh yeah,
So I am absolutely going to be either for days before or days after. I'm not sure which. I will be definitely going as far west as Marfa and then back.
yeah. And
so
I'm looking at going possibly. I'm thinking going to New Orleans before I turn around and start heading back west. So that's kind of my kind
well,
of dream afterward
I
thought.
was going to just say maybe on the way back that we do a breakfast at Cafe Du Monde on the way back.
Ooh, yeah.
See, this is going to amount to like I can see like the podcast from May 9th. It's going to be like how we all lost our jobs.
The weekend fly-in turned into 3 weeks long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What if we
Hey,
just
let's
keep
get some
flying
RSVP
around until
back.
Oshkosh? We can just, just fly for the summer. Yeah.
Here we go.
Let's get to our feedback.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, one more thing before we
Yeah.
do. So this is roughly 50 miles outside of San Antonio. Not too much different outside of Austin as well. It's to the west of those towns. So that's good news if you're planning on coming in commercial or if you're planning on getting refundable backup tickets to come to this. That getting into San Antonio, lots of flights going into there. It's not too far away from Fredericksburg. So just keep that in mind as the other option rather than flying yet another plane into Fredericksburg. If you
Yeah, well, there's
that's
plenty
not
of
an option.
parking, but hey, like if you just need to fly in commercial, somebody will gladly. You're not going to twist a lot of arms for somebody to come grab you at San Antonio or Austin or something. So not a big deal.
Yep.
We will work with you. And so like for instance, I see Devereaux's commenting in the chat right now. He says definitely recommend stopping at RFI for gas if you are coming from the east. Rusk County has some of the cheapest fuel. Anyway, so what I want to do is I want to say, please, we have a channel I think opened up in Discord.
Yep.
That is where we got to start tracking all of these recommendations and these little details. So I don't want things to get lost in the chat here on YouTube. So please, if you have good information, insights, hookups, mafia type connections, whatever it is, please let us know and either email us or drop it in the Discord. So we are all talking.
That Discord channel is under the community section and it's called 2025 Big Texas Send.
All right. So that's
So
the spot.
That's the spot. Call, I would say, starting Monday.
Yeah.
And get your name in. And again, please fill out the RSVP form. We really do need that to plan for this. We would greatly appreciate it. And again, if you have to cancel, you have to cancel. Nobody's holding your feet to the fire. We're not asking for any money. Just we need to get a good count of who's coming. So we got a couple of feedbacks that we wanted to read, and I was going to take the first one if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
This comes to us from Chris H. And this is kind of in response to several things that we've said over the last couple of podcasts. So Chris says, to Brian, as a Part 121 guy, and for those of you who don't know, that's the airlines, the commercial airlines, as a Part 121 guy who routinely flies into non-towered airports, and this is about you waiting on that flight coming into, was it Bowling Green?
Yeah, I was holding
runway?
short, and there was a Metroliner.
Yeah, Metroliner.
Opposite. I was trying to depart 2-1. They were coming in 03.
Yeah. So he says, as a guy who routinely flies into non-towered airports with 115 souls behind me, thank you for making the perfect decision and waiting for the Metroliner. I've been the guy on approach wondering what WTF is this guy doing? As the 170 blasts off right into our face, I hope these cockpit voice recorders never need to be pulled. I'll be in some hot water. To Ted, he says, from the same episode, Remember what the ATC guests you guys have had on told you. It's not a staffing problem at your airport, it's a volume problem.
Yeah.
And lastly, to me, he says, when I was going through my military flight training, I had an instructor that busted out laughing on my downwind to final turn. I asked why. He said, I've never seen a student screw up every approach so badly and make such great landings out of it. To this day, I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult.
Yeah.
Signed, a perfectionist whose best days occasionally come within sight of mediocrity.
So good.
It was fantastic. I identify with everything that he says in there. That's fantastic. Brian, you got some feedback from some guy named Wendell.
Wendell
Geek.
Wendell Geek. Yeah, I mean, he's I think that he has mastered reincarnation or something. I feel like he can be present in through so many mediums and places simultaneously. I don't know. There's something mystical about Wendell Geek. I think it's a ruse. So yes, great feedback. By the way, on that, I'm happy to be, for somebody to say, hey, you did the right thing. I mean, because it did, we always have questions about that, but I really, when you're in a non-towered in a non-towered environment, giving way to people on instrument approaches is something you've got to be on top of. All right. From Mr. Wendell Geek. Hi, guys. Like he doesn't know us. Hi, guys. In episode 108, you guys talked about failing upward. And I heard Ben say, quote, it was embarrassing, but no one was hurt, and I didn't bend the airplane. Well, I did bend my airplane. I know that all three of you know this already from the conversations in Discord, but I've been hesitant to share it officially on the podcast. It happened over 6 months ago, and the overwhelming negative emotion from that event is only now starting to subside. Short version of what happened. I was taxiing around an unfamiliar... By the way, I need to say, this is a long feedback. This is not my story. This is Wendell Geek's story. So if somebody's not paying attention and then they kind of chime back in, I don't want people to think, has Brian called the FAA? This is not me. This is our good friend, Mark. Wendell Geek. Okay, so he says, short version of what happened. I was taxiing around an unfamiliar airport, and despite having reviewed airport maps and satellite images, it's difficult to get an idea of how cramped an airport is without being there. True. I was trying to park in the last available spot, and I lost track of my wingspan and ran the left wing into a concrete pole. Don't. My immediate reaction was get my passenger out and away from the airplane and find someone at the airport to help. After all of the urgent safety matters were attended to, the self-questioning, shame, and embarrassment afterburners kicked in hard. I have, from the beginning of starting my flight training, made a promise to myself. I will quit flying long before I am a danger to myself or others. I honestly think I annoyed a couple of my CFIs with this. If you see something in my flight training, quote, if you see something in my flying that has you questioning my ability to do this safely, do not hesitate to say something. I'm paying you for that assessment. This event really felt like external confirmation that I should keep my promise. And the first thing that got me out of that hole was a message that Brian delivered to me from his wife, Katie, and it was simple and blunt. Quote, don't be ridiculous. And this is because at the time, I think, understandably, Mark was really beating himself up about it but it had gone immediately to the level of, and this is a midlife thing, right? But it's like, should I be doing this? Right. So yes, my wife's response to Mark was, don't be ridiculous. Tall order.
Spoken as only Katie could say.
Right. That started me on a path to try and at least make something constructive out of the experience. I decided to document everything that happened as I went through the repairs. I put forth a plan. When steps in that plan were completed, I documented how it went and what happened. If there was a delay, I documented that too. I gave descriptions of how things went with AOPA Pilot Protection Services. I talked about the things insurance asked and how it all worked. My hope was for that thread to become a resource if anyone should ever bend their airplane. At least they then might be able to see what happened when I went through it. It took nearly a month before I could get back in the airplane and fly it back home. That flight was terrifying, but it was also soothing. I hadn't suddenly lost the ability to flight plan or to take off or to talk to ATC. I could still land the airplane. I successfully navigated 2 airports on the ground without hitting anything. You're right when the bar gets really low again, right? Each successive flight since then has rebuilt a little bit of self-confidence. At the same time, this is going to be something I never forget happened. Brian, your comment was that someday I would be thankful for this event. I'm not there yet, but it has made me much more careful while taxiing. It's also renewed my fervor for filming and reviewing all of my flights to see if there's anything else I'm being too cavalier about. Anyway, this is what came to mind when I listened to that episode, and I thought it was time to share. Hi, I'm Mark. I crashed my airplane. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
I keep thinking of the movie The Room. Hi, Mark. Yeah.
I've got to pick up Mr. Nathan Ballard's comment from
Yeah.
here. He
There's a lot in there.
Yeah, you're super safe to fly, Smiley. That'll be $300 for my assessment. Well, Mark did say that. Yeah. You know, I think of Mark hitting that, seeing those pictures, and we don't mention it, even though we know it, because the point isn't to say, oh, look at what he did, right? And that's true of any kind of crash discussion that we have. The point isn't to point fingers at the person or to decide that you're better than them, they're worse than you, whatever. The point is, this could have been any one of us.
100%.
And he's only unlucky for it to have been him. It could easily have been me in that same position. And that's my goal, at least, is to look at those situations and learn from them, and not kind of other the situation and say, well, I mean, Mark's a different pilot than me, and I would never be looking down at something. It's like, no, that this is so easy for it to be any one of us. So yeah, I really appreciate that he shared that.
There is something to be said for the humility that he's shown. To me, that's a sign of a strong character, and I think you grow exponentially from coming forth with this stuff than if you were to hold it in and not say anything to anybody. So, just my 2 cents.
The only other thing I would add to it, that just to right size some of this, is that I think it's a little bit of a midlife tendency that we really analyze things. We've talked a lot about this. We tend to be perfectionists, as we've talked about in the recent episodes. And I think when he said something about, like to make sure I'm not being too cavalier, I wouldn't characterize what happened as a result of cavalier. You know what I mean? I feel like that's almost like a little. Look, feel about it however you want to feel about it, but I'm just saying, to try to right size that feeling a little bit. It's a little hyperbolic emotionally. I feel like but I think that that's good. At the same time, it's only going to amount to good things to take things that heavily and that seriously. But and we all have those things where it's, hey, chalk that up. The odds of that happening again are almost nil.
Yeah, I understand the reaction though.
Yeah, especially because when it's a partnership.
Yeah,
plane.
And it's also like, well, if I did this, imagine how easily I could have gotten into a bigger situation with whatever my level of judgment is.
I see. So it's almost like if this could happen, what else could have happened?
Yeah, that's at least how I kind of look at that. But
kind of like I've left myself open, and that's just how it manifested. But it could have been in any other phase of flight or anything about anything.
We're saying, wow, how unlucky that he hit his wing, and he's saying how lucky I am there was only my wing.
Yeah.
So
Right.
anyway,
Okay. I get that. Yeah.
so we were talking about well, landings a little while ago, and there was a comment in Discord from John B, and I saved this a couple weeks ago. And I wanted to read it. Um, he said, "Took my 16-year-old up for the first time in a small plane. He was so nervous, and I was reticent as it was from a short runway. PA-28 did good, not insignificant crosswind either, but he was up for it. He loved it, and even took the controls as I was trying to explain that planes love to fly, and then he absolutely loved it. Uh, dot dot dot. And I had a great crosswind landing, one of my best. My son turned to me and said, 'Dad, that was the smoothest landing I've had in a plane.' Uh, it wasn't the smoothest, but I'll take it. I love this community and love flying in midlife to experience days like today." Um, Great way to put it there.
Love it.
These are this is why we fly. Days like that.
100%.
Days when you rent a plane to fly to Texas. Whatever the case is, right? Remember that this is why you got into this. It wasn't to get through training, to get your ticket. It was for it to take you somewhere. And so, it's really easy to kind of get caught in those details, I think.
Very, very cool.
Ben, didn't you have one more feedback you wanted to
I
read?
do. We got a email from the banjo pilot, and he offered this as maybe a mini topic. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share it here. And I'll go ahead and read it, and then I'll shout my disclaimers, if you will. So this is from the banjo pilot. Hey guys, I hope you've all had a great holiday season so far. My question is about something Ben has mentioned a few times on the podcast, using his airplane to travel for meetings as part of his job. I am also in a job that requires me to travel a significant amount within a decently large territory. Right now, I fly commercially or drive. I'd love to start utilizing my club airplanes for this, when practical and weather permitting. Obviously, I don't want Ben disclosing anything that get him in trouble with the FAA. I mean, he can't do anything wrong, I guess, but no. But he continues. But I would love to hear about how he's gone about navigating that, since it's travel that is incidental to his job. Thanks and happy holidays, Banjo Pilot. So it's a little bit different. Well, maybe it's not different. My travel is incidental. I do work for an insurance carrier, and I am using my airplane to get from point A to point B. It's not being used to make me money. Um, However, outside of that, my company has a policy where they will not pay for any private air travel. Period. End of story. So all gas fees and everything is on my wallet. And I am perfectly fine with that, because anybody I know that I ask this question to, would you rather pay $200 and get from Savannah to Atlanta in 2 hours, or not pay $200 and have it take 5.5 hours while sitting in traffic? So yeah, it's the time machine aspect of it, and I'm happy to incur those costs. It's just now you would want to check with your company, make sure you're not violating any uh, company travel policies. But I
Or
am not.
club policies?
Yes, I am not a tax accountant. I am not a CFI. I do know that I can use my plane to get me to business meetings that are um, not directly as an income source to that plane, or for the purpose of that flight. So, but check with your CFI, check with your company, and if they may not be willing to reimburse you anything. I do. My company requires me to rent a car if I'm driving over a certain amount of distance, so I'm able to charge the rental car if I need one, in that aspect of it.
And sometimes you'll fly and still need a rental car.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. So when I go to Savannah for 3 days, you can't get a courtesy car for 3 days. So I will rent a car.
No, I mean, like, your plane has to stay.
Oh, yeah. Like a couple of weeks ago. That's exactly right. By the way, I had dinner with my partner, brother in law, and my sister. Terry and I did. And I failed to mention, and it was after the podcast that it occurred to me, he was supposed to have the plane the next day, and while it was in Athens, and I get a call at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's like, "Where's the airplane?" Because he called to make sure the airplane was topped off, and they called it back and said, "Mr. Stewart, the plane's not there."
Yeah.
So yeah, I got into a little hot water, and justifiably so.
You
Now
were
he understood the purpose of why I left it where I did, but a heads up would have been really nice.
at least when you first told me that story, I just imagined him walking around, just like, what's happened here?
It wasn't that bad, but he did wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to take a really early flight, only to find out that
Oh.
the plane wasn't there. So
No, man.
anyway,
You're a terrible plane partner.
I
Brad.
am a horrible, horrible person.
And then what does he do to exact revenge on you? He ceramic coats
Yeah.
the plane.
It's
Yeah.
looking good. And everybody's been asked, is it flying faster? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
Do you remember when you were a kid and your parents would take you to the mall or whatever, and you get a new pair of sneakers, and you'd run around in the store, and you were trying to figure out which ones would make you run
Right.
faster?
Right. Yeah.
It's like
Kinda
that.
same
Like,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Well,
there's something to it.
I think really what it comes down to here is remember learning about your privileges for flying, private pilot privileges and limitations, 61-113, which is where it talks about incidental to business. AOPA talks about it in pilot protection services a little bit. There's plenty of places you can go to kind of decide what that term means to you and
Yeah.
where you're willing to put that,
That's right.
draw that line. And certainly Ben isn't doing it to earn money from flying, and that seems to be kind of the general consensus is if you could substitute a car for the plane isn't required here. And so that's I think it's a great discussion. I'd love to hear where other people feel about it.
Yeah.
Please send us your feedback on any of these matters. By the way, definitely don't listen to guys on a podcast that just advertised that we're having a flying event called the Big Texas Send, and we're just going to send it to Texas. We are not the people that you should be counting on for any actual information of any kind.
And
But
if you're taking advice from us on this topic about incidental to business, make sure to cite that the episode is episode 109, Information Texas Whiskey.
Exactly.
That's
You
right.
got your source from Information Texas Whiskey.
You're doing this to yourself is what we're trying to say.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and so the last thing I just want to mention real quick is, this is going to be, like I said, the whole fly-in itinerary and all of the details and the add-ons and the events and the things that is going to be coming together over the next few months. All that being said, I'm just going to let the folks here know now that there is actually a t-shirt live now in our merch store.
Wow. I didn't even know this.
I did not know this either.
I hope you guys like it.
Doesn't matter if we do or don't. It's there.
If you would like to get the shirt that Ben and Ted feel questionable about, you should do it right now. And it is the official Big Texas Send 2025 fly-in t-shirt.
Yeah.
And it's got our logo on the back, and on the front it just says send it with a little Texas icon and Big Texas Send and the date and the location. So anyway, we'll do more special treats, and Ted will end up I don't know, inevitably, I don't know, it's like I just had a little bit of spare time. I 3D printed everybody their own Cessna 172, like a real one.
Yeah.
So
We've
there's
got
one
some ideas.
thing.
Yeah.
To wrap this up, especially about the fly-in. So we've had 5 of them now. Is that count correct?
Not sure.
Something like that. Every single time, there's this magic that happens.
Yeah.
Something doesn't go right, then everything goes right. It's very hard to explain, but there's some secret sauce that happens, and it's not something that we try to make something magical happen. It just does.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We rented a compound, and it fell out from under our feet, and we ended up in this hotel and had a great time. There's something that happens. So
Yeah,
we're
you
we're
guys
asking you to come be a
almost got
part of
kicked
it.
out for ripping the stereo system apart at the hotel that was on the pool deck.
Yeah.
So if we what you're saying, Ben, is even if we end up in a place we didn't ask to be, we will physically wreck it and adapt it to be whatever our taste is, and so we're gonna have a good time or bust.
We will, and there's been plenty of other meetups where we didn't have to wreck anything. So let's not go quite too far. But
Well, except for
um,
Mark's plane almost every time. But besides that, nothing gets wrecked.
yeah, all
Yeah.
we have to do is figure out who's going to pick Mark up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's our
Uh,
biggest challenge.
Well, I'm super excited, and it's not it's good to have something to look forward to like that. It's good for
Absolutely.
living.
Yeah.
So we want to thank everybody in the chat. It's been a great, lively bunch. Thank you all for joining us. If you're listening to us on the audio version, please leave us a review. As Brian mentioned earlier, that really goes and helps us a lot. Tonight's bit of wisdom is in relation to the fly end, and as to what I was just saying, you can't please everyone, and if you try, you're going to please no one, and that's kind of how things have floated along for us. So, with that, anything else for the good of the order, gentlemen?
No, just I want everybody to have a good thanks for an awesome 2024. We didn't really do like a year in review.
Yeah.
So I just want to just say thanks everybody for sticking with us. We've been really high paced this year and we've grown a lot. And it's been a lot. But we've had a fantastic 2024 and you guys are all the reasons why. And we just hope to keep delivering. Thanks for all the people that keep showing up for supporting us on Patreon and all these things. It really makes a massive difference. And we are working on, as much as we are talking about this fly in, we have some possibly even bigger things that we're looking at potentially for 2025. And we will let you know. But anyway, my voice is giving out. But I wanted to say thanks to everybody. 2024 was awesome. And we expect 2025 to be equally, if not better, awesome.
Absolutely. Wishing everybody out there the happiest and healthiest and prosperous new year for you. Signing off. Episode 109 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.